In recent years, the regulatory state has grown to unprecedented levels. In 2016, 126 new final rules were issued, adding nearly $70 billion burden to the economy. On average, nearly $15,000 is the cost to the average American household. Many of these regulations have been imposed without a thorough cost-benefit analysis, placing costly new burdens on those struggling to make the economy work, employers trying to hire people, while providing little benefit. What's worse, Americans have had little say in the regulations that impact their lives, as unelected bureaucrats have often exceeded their authority, imposing new regulations that negatively affect families and job creators. It is our responsibility as the people's representatives to protect them from ever-expanding regulatory state. I am proud to introduce the OIRA Insight Reform and Accountability Act, yes, another acronym, as a major step forward towards bringing accountability back to a bloated government. This legislation will strengthen congressional insight and accountability over the regulatory process by putting the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs into statute. OIRA can and should be the first line of defense to stop overly burdensome regulations. President Reagan outlined its responsibilities to review agency regulatory action before rule finalization. In 1993, President Clinton issued an executive order outlining the process under which OIRA currently reviews regulations. President Clinton put it well, saying, "The American people deserve a regulatory system that works for them, not against them. A regulatory system that protects and improves their health, safety, environment, and well-being, and improves the performance of the economy without imposing unacceptable or unreasonable costs on society. Regulatory policies that recognize that the private sector and private markets are the best engine for economic growth. Regulatory approaches that respect state, local, and tribal governments, and regulations that are effective, consistent, sensible, and understandable." As you see, this is an issue that transcends partisanship. It is about good governance. It is about accountability. It is about making sure government solves problems, works coherently, rather than creating problems. OIRA is intended to function as the first line of defense and stopping regulatory overreach by overseeing the federal regulatory process. As the body that reviews these regulations across agencies, OIRA is uniquely positioned to eliminate conflicting and redundant regulation coming from different federal agencies. OIRA is currently responsible for reviewing significant rules. It's an important distinction. Those are rules having an impact of $100 million or more on the economy. OIRA is also tasked with the role of performing a cost-benefit analysis on agency proposals. This is a critical function. Yet currently, OIRA does not review rules unless an agency proactively submits them for review. OIRA currently allows agencies to determine themselves whether their rule is considered significant. This raises significant concern as agencies have wide discretion to determine which rules undergo OIRA scrutiny in the rulemaking process. H.R. 1009 combats this lack of accountability by placing OIRA under congressional oversight, reaffirming congressional authority, the people's authority, over the regulatory process. Moreover, it requires a written report on proposed regulation to ensure transparencies throughout the regulatory process. H.R. 1009 also requires a retrospective review of past regulation to eliminate outdated, duplicative, and conflicting regulations. It's a common-sense reform. As new rules are created, we ought to ensure that those already in existence still make sense, that new rules don't conflict with old rules. H.R. 1009 will ensure OIRA's continued existence to do the important work of overseeing federal agencies by placing OIRA's responsibilities in a statute, not depending on executive orders. These measures will enable OIRA to function as it was intended, to ensure regulations created by agencies are thoughtful, essential, consistent, and not overly burdensome. As President Clinton said, the American people deserve a regulatory system that works for them, not against them. I couldn't put it better. Let's make sure our regulatory system works for families and businesses across the country. I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 1009. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman,